Happy Friday! Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I am talking today with my good friend Lori Alford, and we have so much to talk about. But before we get started, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Before we get started, Lori, I got to say thanks to KARE for sponsoring Foresight TV. They are the anti-staffing agency. Every time I say that, I always think I'm probably saying something really confusing. But if you have shifts that you need to get filled and you don't want to pay a fortune to traditional agencies, KARE is the place to go. It'll save you less money. They are also finding that if you just don't want to pay overtime, you've got somebody who can actually work the shift, but it's actually going to cost you more money to pay overtime than it is to use them. So check out KARE. You can see the link there. It's in the chat. We would love to have you support them because they support us. They make it possible to have this great content every week. Lori?
Yes,
welcome.
ma'am. Hi, so good to see you.
I am so excited about this. I ran into you briefly in Miami a few weeks ago at OSHA, but we hardly had a chance to chat and catch up. And I was sort of thinking back to, I think the first time we ever met was that Avanti was really just this idea that you had in no buildings. And you were out talking to everybody and sort of you had this clean white sheet of paper of, I'm going to go build an amazing company. And so I'd like to have you just talk a little bit about your story and your journey.
Yes. Goodness. So back in 2013, can you believe 10 years ago? I've been in the industry my entire professional career. I got out of college and I needed a job. And I was actually started making $10 an hour as a market research assistant in a senior living company. And like most people in senior living, once you start, you just don't leave. And I didn't. And I have, done everything from market feasibility to government relations lobbying to marketing, sales, operations, the whole kit and caboodle. So I have a well-rounded view. And when I started Avanti, what, we were set out to do was to make senior housing sexy, because what I had learned in my experience was nobody wanted to live in our communities. They just weren't excited, right? It was like prison and this and that. And I saw a huge gaping blind spot in the look of the building, the branding, the programming. And so when I started Avanti, I rewrote all the policies and procedures from scratch. I didn't take them from the past companies I had worked with and put a new logo. Everything was rewritten. And that was a really good exercise because it made me stop and think, why are we doing this? And how should we be doing this more efficiently given today's environment? But most importantly, we built all of our buildings from the ground up. So we did the market feasibility, we bought the land, we did the design work, and they're all prototypes. So all 7 buildings look the same. It's kind of like Starbucks. When you think Starbucks, you know what it looks like on the inside. Well, that's how Avanti is. And really worked with the architects shoulder to shoulder in creating something that was very different, that flowed very differently. Every part of our building, there's a why behind the what. And the main piece of it is, while we were coming up with what Avanti was going to look like, I took the opportunity to take all of my friends' grandparents to dinner or lunch. And it was really informative to see what they wanted in a building. And I would start it with, I'm out building new buildings. What's it going to take for you to come live with me? And the funniest, most memorable thing I can remember about it was, I said, there were 2 things. One, I said, I want to have a fitness studio because I like fitness personally. So I really wanted to we wanted to create our own sole proprietary fitness program, of which we did. would you come into, our fitness program, and what would you want to see? And it was everything from like yoga to Pilates to spinning class. And I was like, whoa, you would do a bike? And the lady was like, yes. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And just kind of tucked it away, right? My bias, or unconscious bias, actually, of thinking seniors, that's unsafe, they're not going to do it. But it was really interesting because she wanted to do it. And then the other thing was, I said, well, what happens if I gave you an iPad? Would you use it? And she looked at me, and she could tell by all these questions I had asked. And she said, honey, listen, I'm not dumb. I'm just old. I was like, wow, I just got schooled. And from that moment on, it made me really question everything that I had learned from my career and said, am I doing things because it's what I know, or am I doing things because it's what the actual aging population wants? And when I brain shifted into that, we then created Avanti, where we don't have medication carts in our building. We don't have these big housekeeping carts in our building. Everybody is in swag. Our nomenclature is very different. We don't have a business office manager. We have a culture keeper. We don't have a wellness department. Our Exhale department is called Exhale, or our wellness department is called Exhale, and it's branded green, pink, and it's gradated into white because it's a woman who we're selling to. She's that adult daughter stress. So it's like, just breathe. We've got this. And we only call bingo once a week, and it's done by a volunteer. And we have happy hour every single day. And the fitness studio is in the center of the assisted living part, and it's all glass. And everyone, when they come in and says, my mom won't do this fitness. She never did fitness. It's the most attended events of our day are our fitness program, because it's kind of monkey see, monkey do. And we do weights, we do pedal spinning, we do HIIT classes, we do yoga, all modified to seniors. But that's been the really fun thing about creating a company from scratch, is we had an opportunity to see some blind spots, and there's 1,000 other little things that we did that are just kind of different, but that's a little bit of how we got here. And the main thing that really stood out was kind of our fitness program.
Yeah, so I really love that a lot. I was at a state association for leading age event here in Sacramento last week, and I ran into Sean Kelly, the CEO of Front Porch. And my question is always, do you have something we should be writing about? He said, oh man, I got to show you this. And so there's a senior women's basketball league that's based out of San Diego, but they've spread across the country. And Sean was I'm going to write about this to be a story in a few weeks, but he played basketball in college. He's a big basketball fan. And so he plugged into this, and they're actually sponsoring a league in Carlsbad with one of his communities. But one of the team members, they're called the Splash Sisters, and you have to be at least 80 years old to play. And so they're all 80 and 90-year-olds. And then as we were talking about this, I came across an Instagram account where these old guys who are in their 80s are all climbing mountains. And so what I love about what you're talking about, Lori, is that you're helping people see that they can do these things. And particularly with the Women's Basketball Association, these women grew up at a time where girls just didn't play basketball. And so you've got these women who are in their 70s and their 80s who've never played basketball, and now they're and playing in a basketball league. So I just love this.
It's interesting that you say that. When we open our buildings, and this is the 100% the truth, and it's mind blowing. When we open our buildings, we buy 1 pound weights and 3 pound weights. Right? Because we think, oh, they're seniors and they can't lift a lot. And in all of our buildings now, we have 1, 3, 5, 8, and 10 pound weights. And you go in there and they are like curling, doing their bicep curls, doing their overhead presses, they're all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing. And I think our industry, we tend to think we know what they want, but do we? is the question. And I believe the answer is we don't. And we really have to listen to what the consumer wants. And listen, fitness is a big part of it. Our industry, we're reactive, and what we're caring for when they're sick. And so we're reactive in it. But if we could be proactive and actually help them build muscle, helps them walk better, which helps their heart, which helps their longevity. And so it's just got so many great domino effects that happen from our fitness program. We also have a mind component to it too. So it helps keep their minds a little sharp every day as well.
Well, the other thing is it's that, because we are in a business, you do those things and it actually reduces your staffing costs, and it increased length of stay,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you have fewer units to fill. And so all that stuff is so super important. So I want to ask a little bit of a hard question. You sort of touched on one already, but when you sort of look back at it, what is it that you would do differently? What are the mistakes you made? What are the lessons learned that maybe would help some other people?
Gosh, the list seems a mile long, because we all know the best learner is failure or something that didn't
Yep.
work. So we're always looking at that. I would say the epiphany that I've really come to the past 2 years is, when I started Avanti, I'm going to make senior housing sexy and build these buildings that look like Kempton hotels, that are branded like very modern, society of what the nomenclature people are used to hearing. What I have found, though, is while it's been really great for our culture, we don't have the staffing turnover that a lot of other folks struggle with, and we definitely have great census, but residents still aren't running through the door to live there. And so, what I would say that I have learned from this that's really helping me for the future is, what is it that the seniors really want, and what is it going to take to really rebrand our industry as a whole, so that people fear aging, and that's a natural feeling, but people think aging and old, that's in our buildings. And what people don't realize is what we do is really special, but it's only our industry that knows it, and the few people that have chosen, few meaning by the millions of people that are out there, right? The few
Right.
people that have lived there, we do amazing work and we've got great stories. But for some reason, there's a disconnect of getting them there and having the normal population hearing and seeing and believing that we aren't the last place that you go to die, and that aging doesn't have to be scary. And so that's been really one of my biggest takeaways of learning, is even though I built this really cool building and the nomenclature is cool and it's pretty, it's still, we still have the same stigma that every other senior living operator has, and that no one's running to live with us. They have to live with us because they need us. And now what goes on in my little brain is, what's that next prototype going to look like? How do I really need to reinvent something so that we can help rebrand what that image is? And I don't have the answer for that just yet, but that's been my biggest thing that I've learned most recently.
So I'll tell you the thing that I love this topic. It's something I'm thinking about a lot right now. I actually think that there's some work that needs to be done on the programming side to make senior living more attractive. But I think that the bigger challenge, the bigger opportunity is we've got to be telling the story differently. So have you seen this Instagram, TikTok channel called Retirement House?
Mm-hmm. I love them.
They're amazing, right?
They're
And so
amazing.
every time, I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, oh man, this is senior living. Well, it's not. They're paid actors, and the storyline in this, it's like a sitcom in some sense on Instagram and TikTok, is these old friends that are doing cool things in their 70s and 80s. And as I look at that, and a lot of it is to very contemporary music, meaning maybe wouldn't attract your audience. But I think that I look at those people and I think, man, when I'm ready to go senior living, those are the kind of people I want to go move in with. And yet, when I look at the video storytelling, it used to be we didn't do video. Now we're doing some video storytelling, but I don't. They're cute stories, and so we sort of feel proud about them as being cute stories. But I don't know that there are stories where people look at it and say, "Oh, I want to go live with those people." I think that's And my biggest complaint is I want to know where my 60s and 70s and 80s rock background music is to these stories. Music has so much power, and we don't do that at all. So I think there's opportunity to reframe how we tell the story.
Well, and what if I told you that you could control how you age?
Yeah.
That if you want to have an achy knee, have it. But if you don't, there's some things we can do to help you with that. Or if we can improve your gut health, or if we can improve inflammation, which causes a lot of the 5 major components of disease and all of these great things. And so if we really work towards how do we change aging, and what I love about science that's coming out now is we're learning that we can control it. And I'm personally just a big advocate of that longevity space. I had an aneurysm back in 2019. So I've had a total of 11-hour brain surgeries and have 2 pipeline stents in my brain, and have had to work very hard the past 3 years in taking control of my own health. I lived a little bit like a memory care resident where I knew the word, but I couldn't get it out. Fast forward 3 years now, my brain is sharper than when I was in my 30s because I just do a lot of brain health work. And I think there's just some opportunities. So what if people actually came to live with us in hopes they could reverse their biological age or actually feel better instead of being reactive in the care that we're providing? Just a thought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think that I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and he said, when senior living will win when they can figure out how to be better. It's better to live in senior living than it is to live at home. And part of that's the program, and part of it that's telling the story. And I think that's just such a huge, huge opportunity, because I actually do think for many, many people as they get older, it's better than living at home. You're safer, you're happier, you have community, so many of those things. So
we've learned from the Blue Zone studies, right, that community and purpose matters and connectivity.
That's right.
And so we've learned that when you study the cities that have the highest, longevity rate or lifespan, their purpose and their sense of community is usually number one, outside of also food and eating healthy food, of which we struggle with here in America. But for sure, and that's the great thing about our industry, we naturally create community and we can naturally help give people a sense of purpose when we have the right programming in place. And I think, I traveled to Asia this summer. We spent 3 weeks as a family in Asia. And what I learned there, Steve, was everywhere I went, I saw seniors. I saw the aging population, and it was incredible. They were walking, they were babysitting their great grandchildren. They were in, if we went and got these great like massages and stuff like that, and they would be there taking care of the grandchildren. They were everywhere. And when I came home, I gave a lot of thought, like, wow, besides the food that was very natural, there was no processed food. It was just good portions. It was healthy food, which is a very, very important to your health and longevity. But the other thing that I loved about it that I think we as Americans have almost kind of faulted our seniors a little bit is they don't take away things. So we say in our industry, we're going to give you 3 meals a day. We're doing your housekeeping for you. We're doing this for you. No, in these Asian countries, they don't still do for their seniors because the seniors still do for themselves. And I think that's a really big aha moment. Are we taking away purpose when we say, we're going to clean your apartment, we're going to do your laundry? I mean, I personally would love that, but maybe when you're of age where that's kind of all you're doing, and that's, you're not going to work, you're not raising kids, you're not, going out and socializing or traveling as much. Are we taking away purpose not purposely ever, but it really made me kind of pause and rethink some of our programming to reevaluate and think back and reflect upon what I saw in Asia over the summer, because I really was in awe at this aging population. Again, that people don't do for them because they still do for themselves.
Yeah, I think that we are better on this purpose thing than we used to be.
Yeah.
But I think there is a lot of opportunity to still grow. I haven't talked about it much for a long time, but a number of years ago, I talked about and I wrote several articles suggesting that senior living operators like you, I mean, I don't know whether you do this or not, so I hope I'm not getting myself in trouble, but that we ought to be looking for operators ought to be looking for opportunities where residents can actually work in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could your residents be staffing your front desk, as a for instance?
Mm-hmm.
Could they be helping with medication passes? What else could they be even maybe helping in the kitchen with some of the work that happens in there? And I remember when I first started talking about it, people would come to me and say, well, you can't have resident because they have access to all that private information. And I'm thinking they do have, that may be true, but these are highly educated people who are used to dealing with confidential stuff. They're probably more responsible with that than somebody who maybe graduated from, I know, no offense taken, but for somebody who is not dealt with that stuff. And so there's just so much opportunity out there.
100%.
Don't get me started.
100%. We yet again are like-minded in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were going to start over, and you've sort of touched on this, but I want to just take a different shot at it. If you were going to start over again, what would you do different?
I would definitely make our fitness studios bigger. They are packed. We have 5 30-minute classes a day in AL and 3 15-minute classes in memory care. I would make the fitness studio much larger. And again, we don't have equipment. These are all class-based, again, because it brings community together, brings people together. It gives them something to talk about at lunch and dinner and breakfast. Our art room, when I built an art room, I literally thought, no one's going to use this. This is just for marketing. No, it's very well used. And it is the number one. That in the studio, we're asked all the time by our teams there, like, if you build a new one, can you build these bigger? Because they're just not big enough for the utilization. I would make our team lounges bigger. We were very different with our team lounge. Our team lounge is up front in the building. It's not an afterthought. It has a door that leads to the ED office and a door that leads to our culture keepers office. So they always have direct contact with the main leaders in the building. It's a big open space. We have a game, like ping pong or foosball or something like that in each building. We have TVs and we have chairs and we have, other cool little things. But if I were to do it over again, I think I would put a place where they could meditate and, kind of calm down their nervous system, even if it was for 2 minutes, because what we do is very stressful. And there's a lot of studies that show just a 60-second meditation or some breathing work really helps to reset that nervous system, which then allows the stress of the brain to overcome the stresses a lot easier. So I would put some spaces in my building that really welcomed moments of quiet or, just a couple people to talk, or even just kind of private space that people could just decompress for a moment, because some people don't like to always be around people and they need that decompression. So I would definitely add some more intentional spaces that are for people's health and well-being, primarily focus on mental health and really for our teams, more so than residents, because they can always go back to their room. I'd also put washers and dryers in all the resident rooms. I definitely costs a lot more, but I think, laundry, we always get complaints on laundry. We lose it and it's so hard to track, and truthfully, and we have them on, we purposely placed them strategically close to all the rooms and enough of them so people weren't having to walk to one side of the building or another, because we don't have commercial laundries. To make it easier for our teams, I would just put them in a room, like make it easier for our teams so that they're not having to walk around more, and the laundry room stuff doesn't get lost. I would do more of that. I'd probably, I definitely would think through some dining space. We have a philosophy: you can eat anywhere in the building, and we do have taste is our dining program. So you can go to the restaurant. It's like everybody else's, though. It's just this kind of big open room, and it's got some, things that break up the flow of the room. But at the end of the day, they're still eating there 3 times a day, 365 days a year, And so really thinking through, how do you give a different type of dining experience? And I'm not sure what that looks like, because I'm not sure it's even anything we've seen in our industry yet. And so those are probably some things I'd focus on.
Do you have any spaces that you built that don't get used that you would eliminate?
No,
Okay.
because when we designed it, we were very big with not a lot of common space. So there's no library. I only have 2 kind of sitting rooms, of which I maybe would decrease it a little bit, but that's where they do their puzzles, because we don't allow puzzles out in the open. And then another one is kind of our A crew room, which is for kids. So it's got an Xbox and all these games that the younger generation like. My kids helped put the program together because they were in elementary school at the time. And they're utilized, a lot. But other than that, we don't have any other common space in our building.
Okay, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about staffing. I know that from the very beginning, making sure that you took care of your staff, and you've talked about it a little bit today, has been a huge priority for you. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what you're doing to love on your people, to make them love coming to work every day?
I love talking about my people because I love my people. That is, people ask why I do what I do. And while I love serving our aging population, I really do it because I love serving all of our team members. It doesn't matter what department you are. It doesn't matter what title you have. Some of the things that we do, we really believe in investing in our department head level, on being true professionals and leaders. And what that looks like to us is we have L10 twice a year. We used to have it 4 times a year, and then they finally said, please, can we just go twice a year? 4 times is too much for us. And so twice a year, we bring in every single one of our department heads, from, our social director, our fitness and coordinator, our culture keepers, our EDs, our sales, our maintenance, our chef. I mean, it doesn't matter. We bring them all in, and we let the buildings nominate an hourly person who gets to come as well. We call them our VIPs. They're my favorite people when they come. Anyway, so we do this twice a year. We talk a little bit about our company culture and our core values. We always have, some good talks about that. But the rest of it's for 2 days. The rest of that day and a half, we do nothing but professional development. So I'll bring in speakers to talk about time management, stress management, health, leadership, how to have, difficult conversations, how to motivate your team. And then we also break into groups into the areas that they're experts. So all the EDs get together, all the sales get together, all the maintenance people get together, and we allow them to submit topics that they want to talk about. So really they control that conversation, but there is an agenda, and they share best practices, or sometimes they're tasked with come up with something that doesn't work that we require you to do, that you're like, why are we doing this? And this is dumb. And I want you to tell me this is dumb and this is why. And giving them time, platform, and to use their voice. We just have seen year over year that while it's very expensive to do it, and I know a lot of operator funds say, yeah, but you just have 7 buildings, you can afford it. At the end of the day, I have 9 department heads, and it doesn't matter if you have 1 building, 7 or 70, the cost is the same,
That's right.
we just believe in investing them. And we've seen our tenure is very good. We don't lose people. They have just watching people walk through the doors, especially the hourly folks in that one moment. They're there for 2 days. And on that first day, their heads are kind of down and they're a little shy. And by the end of that second day, their heads are up, they're beaming, they're confident, they feel good about themselves, and they love the company they work for. Um, I don't know. It's a really powerful thing to watch them grow from it is amazing. And we do that. We do book clubs where, people are invited. I let people pick the books. I'm on them with them. We walk, and actually at the end, if you attend 3/4 of the book club, then you get $100 bonus, because
Really? That's
I believe
cool.
leaders are readers, and you got to incentivize people. And so if you want to learn something, I'll pay you to learn it. And that's been a really good thing. I do some things called Brilliant Minds, where for my EDs, I bring in experts in and outside of the industry and have conversations, not about operations, but business, because they're running multi-million-dollar businesses,
Oh, yeah.
and really expand their mind. We have a very entrepreneurial feel and thinking in the company. And so it's my way of just fueling them with, hey, this is what other industries are doing. Hey, this is, are we asking the why behind the what? Are you challenging me? I'm challenging you. So you need to be challenging me too. I don't know everything. And really, thankfulness. It goes a
Yeah.
long way, and it's free, and you can never overthink people, and just being human. I learned that in through COVID. I would craft these beautiful emails that went out, and it would take me a long time to craft them because I thought I had to say all the right things as their leader. And there was a day that I didn't have time to craft this beautiful letter, and it just raw. It was because we were in the thick of it, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I was not in a good headspace, to be honest with you. And it was raw, and I got so many responses from that email that it taught me people don't want a perfect leader. They just want a real and raw leader. And that has been pivot. I pivoted in my
Pivotal. No, I can't
pivotal.
say it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pivotal in my
Pivotal. There we
career,
go.
in learning that, we all put our pants on the same way, one leg at a time, and we all go to the bathroom too. And so, um, just showing people who you are and that authentic side of you. I'm a single mom, and I'm very open about my struggles with mom guilt. And now my daughter is a senior in high school, and my son is a junior in high school, so it's become a little bit easier. But we're real open in our company about struggles, whether it's I have mom guilt, whether it's I had an ED last year. He's very close with his son, and he was graduating from high school, and he was struggling, and he would talk about it to women that are going, or people that are going through a divorce, or they just they had a death in the family, or they're struggling because something not so great is going on in their home. And we let our teams give that space to talk about it, instead of the traditional work environment where you leave your baggage at the door and you come in and you better have a smiling face. No, that's not real life. People
Yeah.
struggle, and you've got to let people be the best version of themselves. And sometimes that means them talking about when they're not the best version of themselves, and giving them that safe space, and letting them know, hey, we're going to surround you with love, and you can talk to me about it. You can talk to anybody, whoever you want to in this organization that you relate to, because we all have baggage, and let's just help each other out, whatever that looks like. It doesn't matter what your title is. I have problems too, and I openly talk about it. I'm
Yeah.
always Bailey going off to college. I'm like, oh, I struggle. I'm not a crier, but I find myself crying often. And so I really tap into like the ED that his son just went away. I'm like, Michael, you need to be giving me some tips, because you went through this, and this is really hard for me. And I'm going to need everyone to lift me up come August, because I'm going to be leaving her at Ole Miss 10 hours away from me. That's scary.
Yeah.
And I find just those kind of things make a difference. And what it boils down to is really investing in your people as people, not investing in them for the sake of your company. You know, like we don't teach at our group meetings. We don't talk about P&Ls. We don't talk budgets. And this is probably going to blow your mind, and because it does most people, but really I don't even give people budgets, because we look at it month over month, and we look at, you know, what that 3 months looks like at a time, because most people focus on 3 months versus 12 months, and a lot can happen within that year. And it takes a little bit to rewire people's thinking, but we do it a little bit differently. But I mean, I've got buildings that run in the 40% profit margins, and I mean, I've got, you know, buildings that run in the mid 30s, and so it works. And
and the one thing I would say about that, Lori, is I think that, so what happens if you're doing these, I was talking to an executive director who has to every month go through and look at line by line, and if he's got an overage of even like $5, he's got to write an explanation for it. And I think that what it does is, you know, certainly controlling costs is important, but boy, when you make keeping your costs down the most important thing, it means that the other people things are not the most important thing, right? And so I love what you talk about, what you're doing there. So
yeah,
I
I actually did a thing with, and a good friend of mine in the industry actually did it for me. Actually, two different people, two different ways. Got on a call with our EDs and helped them understand from an investor standpoint, right? Because either a REIT owns your building or private people own your building, you know, an investor owns your building, and letting them learn through the lens of that person why that P&L is so important, and understanding what all those numbers relate to and why. And since I've done that, my EDs, we have a monthly P&L call per building. They explain stuff to me, but they're also telling me, hey, I'm driving my revenue like this because I want to drive my NOI margin even higher than what the industry standard is. And if I can do this, 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 and by the way, if I'm continue to manage my expense here, I've gotten this here, then it will all correlate. Like they're thinking for themselves, you know? But what I find is most, and myself included up until recently, when I've done this exercise, we focus a lot on operations and cutting expenses and driving revenue, but there's not a lot of why behind it. And then we don't really teach our leaders in our buildings how to be good business people. We teach how to do good in services, and we teach them how to do good in sales, and we teach them how to, you know, run meetings and run a P&L. But there's so much more to that, making that holistic person, that I have found what works really, really well with us in an unconventional way is focusing on growing people as people, which means being a really good leader and giving them the tools and education to do it, which is outside of our industry, because business is bigger than senior living, and helping them become mini entrepreneurs. And when that happens, it's magical. It all comes together, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So we are past out of time. We could do this for another hour, Lori. I appreciate that. I do want to make note of this one comment from Elizabeth. She wants to talk to you about a project she's got going. So I'll shoot you out a message afterwards just to make sure you're connected. Thank you so much. I love your passion. Your heart is just amazing. And it's people like you who are making the lives of people who live and work in senior living better. This is amazing. Stay on for just 1 minute, and we will be back next Friday with another great guest.
Thanks.